answer. Out of reach, past all we can see, hear, and touch, beyond all we understand, lies the extraordinary. The extraordinary is the eerie behavior of the great apes in the San Diego Zoo 24 hours before the devastating Californian earthquake of January 1994.
Normally these animals are fairly sedate and stay out of public view, but at this particular time they were very nervous, pacing a lot more than usual, and it actually was unusual enough that I noted it on my daily report.
It is the story of the man who jumped from a plane at more than 4,000 meters. His parachute failed, and he faced certain death.
All this probably took a couple of seconds, but it seemed like hours for me. And I remember at treetop height, getting level with the trees, I just completely relaxed. Completely relaxed and breathed out and bang, hit the ground.
But Greg Wright lived a miracle free fall to Earth. It is the unexplained phenomenon of a young woman legally blind since birth who can see with perfect clarity when this Stanford University doctor puts her under hypnosis.
Big man?
Not have your view.
That's right.
It is the final moment in the life of actress Lonnie Anderson's father. A moment that has given her the strength to overcome the worst that life can deal.
A tear came down out of one eye, and he moved his finger, and he died. So he waited for me.
The extraordinary is the absolute dedication of this Kelpie cross. 9 days when man's best friend proved just that.
Certainly saved my life. Makes me upset. Think of what she went through.
Still, no one understands how Trixie knew that she had to save a life. Just some of the stories that lie beyond our normal understanding. Tonight on The Extraordinary.
That remarkable story a little later.
Good evening. I'm Warwick Moss. There are some things about this world that animals sense, and we humans do not. Cats see in the dark. Dogs hear high-pitched whistles that go undetected by our ears. These are the tangible senses. But there are others. Things they know that we don't begin to understand. And so far, no amount of scientific genius has been able to match that knowledge. In California, they truly wish they could.
On the Saturday, January 15th, the keeper of the monkeys, Rachel Rogers, noticed something.
Normally these animals are fairly sedate and stay out of public view, but at this particular time they were very nervous, pacing a lot more than usual, and it actually was unusual enough that I noted it on my daily report.
That was the day the elephants seemed alert, more anxious than normal. The alligators and crocodiles, normally immobile, were edgy. On the Sunday, January 16th, Rogers noticed the monkeys were tense. Without notice, they broke into wild howling. And many of the other animals in the zoo were acting up.
There's a number of different species of guenons and mangabes. The ones that reacted in particular were the golden-bellied mangabes, and they're a type of high-strung primate.
Errol Kilkey, the senior keeper of the Amazon parrots, the macaws, flamingos, kiwis, and the fish-eating herons, would notice it too.
It was very unusual to find birds that were mixed together on their perches, that left their perches because basically it's their security area, and being away from their perch is very insecure.
I noticed one cage of animals that I work with was a little bit more nervous, and so I noted it on my daily report, and one of the guys that I work with, my partner Mike Kohler, made mention of the fact that he thought that we were going to have an earthquake, and I laughed it off and thought it was pretty funny.
And then, at 4:24 a.m. on the Monday, January 17th, Kilkey awoke in the room where he keeps his favorite Amazon parrot in a cage by his bed.
He started vocalizing and running around his cage, which he never does in the evening. At night, when it's dark, he's very quiet, goes to sleep. So I had to get up, actually, because I was concerned that there might have been someone around or outside. I checked around, I didn't find anything going on with the birds, so I tried to reassure it and go back to bed.
And then it happened. The earthquake of 1994 rocked Los Angeles. One of the most devastating earthquakes in American history, costing 57 lives, causing $12 billion in damages. A quake that caught every scientist and authority by surprise, and for 2 weeks left seismologists arguing over which fault it was, how many were involved, and how soon there'd be another. Somehow, a lot of the animals in the San Diego Zoo seemed to know far more than the experts, up to 48 hours before it happened. When it was over, the animals were just as confused as the humans.
After all the shaking had subsided and I came back to my senses, I wondered whether the bird actually knew something was coming, and I was convinced that it was. After the earthquake, the bird was so upset that it kept dive bombing from the top of its cage to the bottom. I had to get up again and turn the light on so the bird could see that there was no problem. My bird at home knew that something was coming. And it just goes to follow that animals simply have a heightened sensory perception of their environment. They're more in tune with nature, they live closer to nature, and they have senses that we simply don't possess. I believe that they can definitely sense when nature is up to something and they're nervous about it.
This is the first time I've experienced this change of behavior, but prior to an earthquake with the animals I take care of. But after the quake happened, I seemed to take more note of it and started seeing other animals reacting actually on the day of the quake, acting nervous or cautious.
A month later, the animals of San Diego are still tense. So are the humans. But perhaps only one group knows when the next big one is coming.
Perhaps one of the most bizarre stories of 1994 is the one concerning the English Maloney brothers. They were flying a former Air Force trainer over England when Tom Maloney put the plane into a mid-victory roll. At that very instant, the passenger ejector seat broke and brother Des was sent plummeting to Earth. He literally fell out of the aircraft that was traveling at 400 kilometers an hour.
The ejector seat landed in a suburban front yard, but Des wound up in a supermarket car park, a souvenir hunter the first to him.
Then a 14-year-old boy came over and asked for my parachute.
Neither had thought they'd see each other again.
What did you say to one another when you first saw them?
I think we just basically kissed each other like real men.
Des Maloney was lucky. His parachute partially opened just before he crashed to Earth, almost 1,000 meters below. All he suffered was a bruised neck. His escape was miraculous, but nowhere near as spectacular as Australian skydiver Greg Wright's dice with death. You see, Wright jumped out of a plane at about 4,000 meters. His parachute didn't open. He was free falling to Earth at more than 220 kilometers or 120 miles an hour. To most of us, skydiving is one of those sports we'd rather sit back and watch from the comfort of an armchair. But to the experts, it's all in a day's play, even when things go horribly wrong. And in August 1988, that's exactly what happened to 34-year-old Greg Wright. Greg's a member of the Katherine Skydiving Club in the Northern Territory, and like most true Territorians, he's a laconic kind of bloke. He's pretty nonchalant about life, even though his mates and his doctors say he's very, very lucky to be alive.
Reserve rides, or malfunctions we call them, they're part of the sport. It's like flat tyres in push bike racing, and you're trained to handle them, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. If you couldn't handle it, you wouldn't be up there. It's as simple as that.
Well, on the day in question, it really wasn't quite as simple as that. Greg already had quite a few jumps under his belt, more than 600 in fact. He and his teammates were at 12,500 feet for yet another one of those formation dives that are so difficult, yet look so easy. This is an actual video of that jump, the one that almost cost Greg Wright his life. John Cook was in the formation that day and recalls the moment the jump started to go wrong.
During breakup, you'll see that Greg has a leg strap trailing off his right side, and it was quite long, and I think there would have been at least 14 inches, 0.3, 0.4 of a metre of excess strap out the right side of his body.
In case you missed it, here again is what John Cook was talking about, the leg strap that would do all the damage.
This leg strap here was a lot longer. I've since cut it off. That was flapping, as you can see.
From there it got worse. First the leg strap, then the small parachute they call the pilot.
I threw my pilot chute away and it tangled with the leg strap. And didn't feel the opening shock. And normally you just throw the pilot chute away and you wait a couple of seconds and you get opening shock and everything's familiar. And this time that didn't happen, and I looked over the shoulder and oh my God, there was an old dirty bag of washing, it was just all tangled up. So I cut that away and went for the reserve, and the reserve and the main just tangled up together.
Greg's mates were helpless, suspended there in the sky over Katherine. All they could see was the tangled, useless mess of parachutes. All they knew was the only way Greg could go was down.
All this probably took a couple of seconds, but it seemed like hours for me. And I remember at treetop height, getting level with the trees, I just completely relaxed. Just utterly completely relaxed and breathed out and bang, hit the ground. I had time to tell the brain to relax. I completely breathed out and just went all floppy. That's the best I can do. It works for old drunks and babies when they drunks fall over and don't hurt themselves. They put me in the same category as an old drunk, I suppose. I don't know. It worked for me.
It sure did, and probably saved his life. But Greg didn't get off scot-free.
I broke left elbow, left ankle and right knee, and they reckon I had a fractured pelvis, but I'm buggered if I could see it on the x-rays, and that was it.
The injuries didn't look quite as bad to start with. You could see he had a broken arm, but he looked fairly comfortable. He's a very tough customer, Greg. I think not just skydivers, he's known around Katherine as a fairly cool operator and can take a knock.
Jumpers are funny, like they'll, he's had an accident, but there's no, like you got to have blood to get sympathy. It's one of those. You walk around limping and broken bones. Jumpers are jumpers, to get sympathy, you've got to have some blood from, they're that type of callous people, but that's the way they are.
Greg's elbow that is really shattered into many pieces.
Greg's surgeon isn't quite as easygoing. His verdict was, quote, he was lucky, damn lucky, to survive.
There, we can see that it's very crushed down.
I think he was pretty amazed. I think the report that they got was there was a parachute accident, a main reserve failure, And that obviously conjures up, splat.
Greg woke up the day following his surgery asking when he could get back jumping. And I told him probably never, but that was before I really got to know Greg. And within 6 months, he was back in the air again, jumping on what would, in other people, have been impossible and crippling injuries.
It was like riding a bike, it really was. It was nice to feel the opening shock, I can tell you that afterward. But out the door, 1, 2, 3, go, and flying around, it was just, I'd done it all before. Come throwing the pilot chute away, that was a few, heartbeat I think went up a little bit, but the opening shock, and it was just back to normal, just like riding a bike.
It's getting on for 6 years since the accident, and Greg still has the scars to remind him how lucky he was. But if anything, he's more dedicated than ever to the sport he almost died for. Greg's now clocked up well over 1,000 jumps, and he's just as relaxed up there now as he is about his amazing feat of survival.
Obviously my number wasn't up, but put it down to I didn't panic at any stage in the whole thing, that I didn't panic, that I'm going to die. That never ever occurred to me, never even crossed my mind. I was reasonably fit. I didn't panic and I was well trained. That's what I'd put it down to.
Being blind since birth, it's impossible for those of us with sight, just as it's impossible for the sightless to imagine the world as we see it. Imagine then if someone had the power to give the blind the gift of sight, even just for 1 day or 1 minute. What would it be like?
Born with severe tissue damage, she has lived most of her life in darkness. But her problems run deeper.
You can all be aspects of the same person, all pieces of Sybil.
No. We're all people. You can see us.
Like the woman in the movie Sybil, she suffers from a condition known as multiple personality disorder. According to psychiatrists, it is a condition often triggered by excessive physical abuse in childhood, where a person subconsciously forms separate personalities to distance themselves from pain and trauma.
The only explanation that I have is that the different parts of me, the different personalities and the different names came about to handle traumatic life events that I otherwise would not have been able to handle or deal with.
Margot, the predominant personality of this interview, was actually born Diana 36 years ago. But Margot has taken over as the core personality. She has been diagnosed as having 68 personalities, all with different names, ages and abilities. Throughout this interview, you will see her change from a sweet 16-year-old Margot to Jackie, a tough 21-year-old, to Corey, a 4-year-old who can neither read nor write. And as you will see, not all of these people are blind. For the most part, we will be speaking with Margot. Her vision is 2400. The state of California classifies that as legally blind. Where a person with perfect vision can see something 400 feet away, she must be 20 feet away to see that same image. In simple terms, she can't see her own face in the mirror. Her blindness can't be helped by glasses. It was as a blind girl that she sought treatment at Stanford University outside San Francisco. There she would meet with acclaimed psychotherapist David Spiegel.
First of all, there's no question that there is real damage to her vision. That is, you can see that her eyes do not move conjugately. They don't track together. She has this resting nystagmus of her eyes where they move rapidly back and forth. And that's something that a normal person just can't do. They can't sustain this back and forth eye movement for very long at all. So we know that she had some kind of injury when she was in her mother's uterus or during birth that left her with a rather severe visual handicap.
We watched as Dr. Spiegel gave Margot an eye exam.
Me, for example, what can you make out about me?
Well, my guess would be that there's a person sitting there because of the shape, but other than your speaking, I wouldn't know whether you were a male or female. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Margot tested legally blind, But then she changed into the 4-year-old Corey.
Someone else needs to call Corey out.
All right, good. Well, why don't we do that now?
Okay.
All right. Corey, I'd like to speak with you if I could, please. Corey? Corey? Hi, Corey. Do you remember me, Corey?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you know who I am?
Where do you be?
Where you be?
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Spiegel, and you're in my office now at Stanford Medical Center.
As we see next, little Corey has good vision.
Could you look at me and describe what you see?
You be the big man.
A big man?
And you not have hair here.
That's right. That's right. What else do you know?
You have eyes to be the color of your... Sorry?
What color is that?
Be the color of the sky.
The color of the sky? That's right. Okay, can I talk to Margot again, please?
My poor foot.
How are you?
Okay, other than my foot.
What happened? Your foot fall asleep?
Oh, I think she must have been sitting on it.
Oh, it hurts, huh?
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Okay.
Do you remember what just happened?
No.
Though Margot is unaware of time and content when other personalities surface, she has an understanding of their existence and abilities.
My world is very foggy and very blurry, and their worlds tend to be very clear and concise. All the handwritings differ marginally, as well as voices. So it doesn't seem strange to me that the visual acuity would change as well.
I'm convinced that as she normally functions, she needs a seeing eye dog and she can't see.
Margot's personality shifts can be induced through hypnosis or automatically triggered, sometimes in the middle of a conversation. Still, the whole situation is not easy to comprehend. It's easy to be skeptical.
Some people are skeptics, and maybe they will never accept it, but it's true. It is a real disorder, and there are many others, just like my mom out there, that don't even know it.
Margot's 14-year-old son, Sean, sits by his mother and talks with our producer, Dan Hardy. Sean's love for his mother is a very special story. He is unfazed by any of her 68 personalities.
Why did you bring Jackie out?
She's a nice person. Jackie, I need to talk to you. Come on out, Jackie. Jackie, I need to talk to you, Jackie. Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
You know what's going on? Have you been watching?
I talked to Meg. She said that there were going to be some people here with a camera.
Yeah, well, here they are.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 21. I consider myself the defender of the tribe.
What color eyes do I have?
Blue.
Definitely blue.
Yeah.
What color shirt?
Kind of a dark green, army green.
Do you know about everybody else that's in the tribe?
No, I don't know everybody.
Everybody is a long list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How long is that list?
68 last time I looked.
This is the guy next to you here.
This is Sean, Diane's son.
How's he?
He's a real cool kid. We wish to thank the following people for their expertise, time, and individual support.
I mean, there's got to be people out there with doubts.
I'm sure there'll be skeptics, and I don't blame them. I can't say that I wouldn't be a skeptic if I were on the other end. All I know is what is real for me and the treatment that I've had and how much that has helped and what a difference that's made in my life.
Corey. Come on out, Corey.
Perhaps the most touching part of this story is Sean's relationship with his mother.
Tell me about the day-to-day life living with this lady to your left.
Well, sometimes it's not this lady on my left. Sometimes it's somebody else. But I get used to it after a while. It's something may change from day to day. Maybe she's not around for a week and somebody else is, or a few others are. And it's just like a normal life, basically. I mean, to me, that's the way I picture it. They're not gonna hurt you. It's okay. They're just filming you.
Sean's parents are divorced, and his mother thinks his father should get custody. But Sean doesn't want out. He wants to stay with his mother, no matter what personality she takes on.
I guess my mom's my inspiration, you know. I want to get her back, and I want her to see this over with, you know, as soon as possible. But again, this is a long process to, you know, help clear up, and I accept that.
I think he's wonderful, and if I think it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be doing as well as all of us are doing without Sean's aid and assistance at times, and love.
Want a hug?
The moments in life that record our greatest triumphs usually total about the same number as the instance when tragedy strikes. The scale of highs and lows in actress Lonnie Anderson's life has been pretty well balanced. No matter how many downs come her way, a good friend. His life was saved by his best mate. A few years ago, Jack made front page news around Australia with his survival tale. You may have even seen his story on TV. Well, Jack's still going strong. So too is Trixie.
Jack Fife is in his late 70s. He's tough, fiercely independent, and he's a survivor. Look at him today, and you'd never guess that just over 2 years ago, he'd been given up for dead. And Jack Fife owes his survival to his closest mate, a four-legged friend called Trixie. Even today, when you talk to Jack about Trixie, he can't help getting emotional.
She certainly saved my life. Makes me upset. Think of what she went through.
What Trixie went through was 9 days of hell, 9 days without food, never leaving her stricken master's side. She quite literally kept him alive. The ordeal began on December the 13th, 1991. It was high summer, and the temperatures were nudging over the 30 degrees Celsius mark.
I had tea, went to bed, the phone rang. I tried to get out of bed, I couldn't. I laid there. I must have went off to sleep again. I woke up. It was hot. I wanted a drink of water. Couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't get out of bed to get one.
Jack didn't know it then, but he'd had a stroke. His left side was paralyzed. He was alone, except for Trixie. Somehow, Trixie knew Jack desperately needed water. Somehow, she knew how to get it. She was able to soak a towel in her own dog bowl, then carry it to Jack's parched lips.
I kept going off to sleep and waking up. I didn't know how long I'd been there. I'd wake up through the night and it'd be dark, and then go off to sleep and wake up and it'd be dark, and then I'd wake up again and be light, and I'd go to sleep and wake up and it'd be light.
Jack was helpless, trapped in bed, not able to get to the phone, not able to call for help. As the days passed, Trixie kept Jack alive. But now, there was hardly any water left in the bowl, and still no sign of any visitors. Time was fast running out for Jack.
Then she got a towel and put it in the toilet. Brought the towel into the, went on for 9 days. She's had nothing to eat for 9 days. Then to finish all the water she was getting was, she was sucking one end of the towel, I was sucking the other end.
9 days without food. 9 days without human contact. With only Trixie between Jack and dehydration. Maybe even death. By now it was December the 22nd. The day Jack was due to have a pre-Christmas lunch with his daughter Jill. He didn't arrive. He didn't call. So that night, Jill and her husband Craig went around to his house just to check. The door was locked, but inside Trixie was barking like mad. Jill and Craig forced their way into the house, expecting the worst. And they found it. Jack was close to death.
At that time I really didn't know what had happened, but then when he kept mumbling and pointing to his arm that he couldn't move it, we thought, well, he must have had a stroke. So then I went and rung the ambulance and there it was. But, you know, for him to lay there for 9 days and to survive was the biggest thing.
He was in a state of marked dehydration, and his kidneys were affected to the extent that they were not functioning very well. He also had a very low blood sugar, indicating that he had not been able to eat for quite some time.
Dr. Marcus Gunaratnam specialises in the rehabilitation of stroke victims at Sydney's Ryde Hospital. He supervised Jack Fife's recovery. 5 gruelling months of treatment and therapy.
If he had had no water at all, he would have died. Because when he came to us, he was in a fairly advanced state of renal failure. And he had had a stroke and therefore could not have provided himself with water.
If it wasn't for Trixie and their close relationship like that, you know, Dad would definitely never survive. No one can survive for 9 days in the middle of summer. You know, I mean, the degrees were 34 degrees. You know, it was just stifling. And for 9 days to lay there. So, you know, Trixie was definitely the one that saved his life, even though we did eventually get down there to get the ambulance, but Trixie did it. You know, she was just wonderful.
Newspapers at the time hailed Trixie as a heroine. But in the midst of all that adulation, Jack was finding the road back to a normal life, long and arduous. Again, loyal Trixie came to the rescue.
I think the main reason Dad wanted to come home was Trixie. When he was in intensive care, that's all he was asking for after the 3rd day was, how's Trixie? So we had to go up, pick up the dog, bring Trixie down, hold Trixie up at the window to Dad so he could see, just to see that she was all right.
It's obvious that he had a very close relationship with the dog, and he certainly brightened up when he saw the dog, and that was something that he was working towards, to be able to go home to his dog. We did allow him to have the dog come up and visit him in the rehabilitation hospital, because we felt that that would certainly give him a goal to work towards and enhance his rehabilitation.
Jack knows he'd never have survived without Trixie, the little Bitzer he bought as a pup 7 years ago. When it comes to her bravery awards, he's like a proud father. When it comes to Trixie herself, words can't express his love and gratitude. As Jack's told his family many times since that summer of '91, he owes his life to her. And now, he just can't live without her.
I mean, he has nobody, only Trixie to talk to, and she is a human being today. And it's nice to know that she is home with him to keep the company, because if it wasn't for Trixie, there'd be nothing really for him.
Before we go tonight, a look at another upcoming story. It began more than 45 years ago when a small boy decided to flee Timor. He stowed away on a plane and almost lost his life. An incredible story of survival. For now, good night. See you in the future.
It's remarkable that he stayed alive, really. It's really remarkable.